morning, Lionhearts. It's your old pal, Jordan the Lion. How are you all doing today? Great! I hope you said wonderful. I'm going to try and make this kind of a fun vlog today because instead of us going out and doing anything, I thought what I wanted to do today is, as I was moving, I spent about a week slowly moving all of my stuff. I came across a bunch of things that not only either I forgot I had or I thought I had lost, but I thought today it would be fun to show you the things that I found and kind of explain what they are. I think you guys will enjoy this. Daze with Jordan the Lion, it begins now. It begins now. No, you're not part of the objects I found while I was moving. I knew where you were, but people want to see you anyway, so you want to say hi? Alright, so our first object today is on the right. Now on the left is a book about the man whose autograph that is. I've vlogged his life before, John Gilbert. He was one of, if not the biggest leading lover for his day in the silent movies, and he had quite a bit of a disagreement with the studio head Louis B. Mayer through his whole career. And when the talking pictures came out, Mayer decided to ruin John Gilbert's career by having the audio technician take all the bass and all the mid-range out of his voice and turn all the treble up so that he had a weak voice, and his life was ruined. He destroyed himself with drinking and eventually died a very young death. Now, I didn't show this at the time because I had lost it. I had a big photo and I had this, a postcard of his home and his autograph, a little cutout down here of his autograph. And I had them framed, and something, I believe it was like an earthquake or something, knocked them off the wall. And when I tried to find these, I couldn't find them. Eventually I did find them, and I must have put them in here because I had already framed the picture. And then when we were moving, filed in with all my DVDs and CDs, we found this. How cool is that? John Gilbert's actual signature and what his house up there on Tower Road looked like. After he lived there, I forget, someone else famous lived there. I think it was Tyrone Power, and then after him, Elton John lived there, and then they demolished the place. Here's the back of the postcard. You can see it's never been used, and yeah, classic shape. And if you didn't see the vlog on John Gilbert, I mentioned in there that I had dated a girl that tracked down his daughter who wrote this book, and she mailed off my library copy of the book to get signed for me, and his daughter actually sent her one of her copies, a brand new copy, and inscribed it to me. Now, a friend of mine gave me this about 10 years ago. I put it in a box with a bunch of other things, and it's been under my bed forever. And when I was moving, I found this. Do you know what this is? Yeah, when I opened it up, I noticed that these were all the stamps from this entire line, this Legends of Baseball series. These are every stamp that they released. How cool is that? Jackie Robinson up there in the top left, Roger Hornsby, Babe Ruth, 33 Cent, Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson. Look at that, pretty great. Cy Young, we vlogged him in his grave. Yeah, it was really cool to find this. Actually, it was very cool to open that thing up and see that both of these were in there. Now, I know I've shown this in years past vlogs, but I have to bring it up now because this is not only a fantastic book written by Vincent Price's daughter, but this is where it really all started for me and where this channel really, I would say, was born. Years ago, when I was unemployed and looking for a job, I started going to the library every day, and I started picking up books and VHS tapes. And I would bring them home and I would start reading the book while I was looking for jobs, because back in those days, you really had to apply online, and that was before I had internet in my home. This was probably 2002, 2003. So I would have to go to the public library to check my messages and to apply for jobs. And so when I was there, one of the first things that I ever got was this. My friend Seth said, "This is a great book, you need to get this." I started reading this and just fell in love with old Hollywood. He mentioned well, she mentions all of his old addresses in here, a lot of the people that he hobnobbed with, a lot of his stories, and it just made me fall down a rabbit hole. And I started getting movies by people that were mentioned in these books, and that's really what triggered my fascination with going back into Clark Gable. And then through Clark Gable, they mentioned John Gilbert, who we just talked about, and other silent stars. So I really wanted to mention this because on his, well, the year of what would have been his 100th birthday, Victoria made the rounds, and she did a special viewing night of, I believe it was the Tingler, the night that we went, and she signed my book. To Jordan, celebration of my dad's 100th, all my best, Victoria Price. And she still runs his entire legacy. She runs the eBay accounts that sell all of the stuff from his home, like the old postcards and letters and things like that, but she does a great job of keeping his memory alive, which is what he would have wanted. Now, I 100% forgot that I even had this, and it is signed by Fats Domino. What happened was in 2008, I got back into going to baseball games. I took my girlfriend at the time to a game, I fell in love with it again, and I started going to baseball, and I made a lot of friends around there who had kids that wanted to get autographs from the players. And through that, I just kind of hung out with them and did that as well. And at the time, my friend was saying, hey, if there's any players or anybody that you want their autograph from when you were a kid, a lot of them signed through the mail. And he turned me on to a website that would have a lot of famous people's addresses, and if people had sent them things and had gotten it returned signed or didn't get it returned signed, it came back unsigned, they would document it on this page, and they would put what date they mailed it out, and then when they received it, they would put what date they received it and what it looked like. And I just thought that was such a cool thing. At the time, Fats Domino was signing everything through the mail, and I had loved Fats Domino. He was really like one of the founders of rock and roll, and being a Happy Days fan, I would always think of Richie Cunningham doing the I found my thrill, his Blueberry Hill. So I had this in my collection. I said, hey, what the heck, let's see what happens. And I mailed it off to the address they had for him in Louisiana. And it didn't take very long. I want to say maybe a week and a half at the most. And I got it back signed from one of the legends of rock and roll. Says, Luck, Fats Domino. Now, to those of you who watched my videos all the way through till the end, you recognize this. This is my original CD copy of 84 Nash, Band for Hire, the band that I use for the music on my channel. People are always asking about it. They have an interesting story. I became friends when I was a senior in high school with a kid that was a junior. I say kid, but he was 1 year younger than me. And we were in news writing together. And he had a lot of really cool taste in underground music, and I had never heard underground music. His name was Adam, and Adam's older brother, Kevin, was in 84 Nash. Now, Adam turned me on to a band that was pretty popular, not hugely popular, but in underground music they were big, called Guided by Voices. And they lived about 20 minutes away from us. And the story was that Adam's brother and his band, 84 Nash, had made a record called Kings of Yeah in their home, in their basement, on cassette, and took it to a record store that they frequented in Dayton called Trader Vic's. Trader Vic played the tape over his sound system one day, and the lead singer of Guided by Voices heard the tape, went and asked about it. Vic said, oh, these are some high schoolers from Troy, Ohio. Bob Pollard decided he wanted to sign them, put them out on his label. He hadn't released anything yet. Rockathon Records. If you know his music, you know that reference, Long Live Rockathon. But he ended up putting out their record, and this was their second record. And once Adam turned me on to Guided by Voices and I became a big fan, he said, hey dude, like next weekend on Friday, my brother's band is playing in Columbus at Ohio State University. They're gonna open the show, and there's gonna be like 6 bands, and Guided by Voices is closing it. So he gave me this CD. I got into his brother's band. We went and saw Guided by Voices and 84 Nash. Been a fan ever since. Became friends with Kevin, and now it's my theme music. And it was surprising to me to have this because I used to have it in my car, and most of the CDs that were in that car got sun damaged or completely melted and were useless, and I couldn't believe that I actually found the CD inside the case with the lyrics. So for a small fee, I will provide you the lyrics to my theme song. I'm kidding. But that is true. Everybody does always ask, what are the lyrics? What are the lyrics? Now I can actually answer if I want. One kind of wacky thing I should mention about this was that when this came out, you see there's an X side and a Y side. They were doing that because it was going to be coming out on vinyl, on record as well. And primarily that's what they cared about most. But when they cut it, the guy didn't realize that they wanted each individual track on there. So he actually cut the CD as only 2 tracks, the X track and the Y track. So each song is like 15 minutes, but it's all those songs blended together. So this is a flooring sample that I got at Home Depot. Back when I was collecting autographs, that was the thing. If you were going to meet a basketball player, you went to Home Depot and got a free floor sample and you'd have them sign it. Now what's interesting about this, the reason I have this and what the story is my friend Joey Diaz used to tell stories about how when he was a teenager, his friend was a ball boy for the New Jersey Nets. And that's when Darryl Dawkins, Chocolate Thunder, the man who used to break backboards, was on the team. And Darryl Dawkins used to always give all of his sneakers after the game to this ball boy. And a lot of players would just throw them away back in those days, but this ball boy would take them to school and sell them. And Joey used to hang out with them a lot, and then Joey got to go over to Darryl Dawkins' house and meet him. And Joey would tell these crazy stories about Darryl Dawkins' refrigerator and how he had all this weird custom stuff and a custom car and everything. So I found out Darryl Dawkins was going to be at Universal City Walk one day signing free autographs, and I went there and I started telling him the stories that Joey had told me, and he started pounding the table, laughing. He was loving it. He goes, I remember that kid. I remember those guys. I go, yeah, they used to sell your sneakers. He goes, good for them. He goes, you know, ask Joey if he remembers this car. And he starts telling me about the car. And I go, oh yeah, he told me about that. He goes, tell him I still got that car. He goes, I bet you, if you ask him, he'll tell you that I used to do lines off that hood right in front of him. And he started laughing. He goes, I did the same thing with the refrigerator. And I asked Joey, and he started laughing. He said, yep, I remember that. So this was a little plank a little piece of flooring that Chocolate Thunder signed for me. Kind of a crazy story, but I found it filed away in one of my drawers. He signed it Chocolate Thunder. Darryl is now since passed, unfortunately. Now what this is my collection of things from Roddy Piper's memorial. A lot of people may not know that Roddy Piper not only was a famous wrestler and a famous actor, action star, but he was also a guy who frequented the Comedy Store. He would come and tell stories and was accepted by all the comedians because Roddy saw how hard doing comedy was, how hard it was to get up there on that stage and tell stories and get laughs and be entertaining. And so Roddy would spend most of his time when he was in Los Angeles in the evenings coming out and telling stories at the Comedy Store unannounced, hanging out with comedians, running his stories by them, looking for tips, doing it the right way. And unfortunately, when Roddy passed, my friend Earl Skakel, who I mentioned a few videos ago, was doing a podcast. He was hosting a podcast with Roddy. Actually, it was Roddy's podcast, and Earl was a guest host on there every week. Earl was waiting for Roddy to show up, and Roddy never showed up. And then he got a text from Roddy's phone saying, sorry, my dad passed away this morning. And so they had a memorial for Roddy up in Oregon, and all of Roddy's wrestling friends and everyone went to that, I'm told, and they had a proper burial for him. But then the Comedy Store also had a memorial for him, and all of Roddy's family came out, Roddy's wife, his kids, and a lot of wrestlers. Diamond Dallas Page, a lot of people that were best friends with Roddy that a lot of people may not have ever heard of were there. And it was a really emotional night, and I just, I always kept my stuff from that ceremony, and I put it away a while ago because it's kind of hurtful to see, because he was such a cool dude. Like, he was really like a mentor to all of us. He kind of gave us a lot of life lessons that you can't really read about in books. And when we were moving, I was looking around and I found this stuff. This was the, the ribbon that we all wore for his ceremony, and then the inside, because it was like his kilt, you can see, oops, sorry about that. You can see the inside of it. It was a great way to say goodbye. And yeah, Keith David was there as well, from They Live. And I always love the quote on here from Judo Jean LaBelle, and Jean LaBelle was there as well. Says, "No man dies who is not forgotten." Now this was a gift by my friend Earl Skakel, who you guys saw in the Lemmy Kilmister video, and I was on his podcast, Inappropriate Earl, recently. One of the earliest times that I did Earl's podcast, way before I was vlogging, Earl was trying to help support Kamala, the wrestler, James Harris. Now Kamala's story was that he was found by the King Jerry Lawler. Jerry Lawler came up with this gimmick and turned this guy into a wrestler. He was a truck driver who became a wrestler, and because of his color, he believed that he was shortchanged on money a lot of his career, and he even mentioned big name athletes by name who took big paydays, and when he wrestled them for big cards where they made a lot of money, he would get like $10,000 where they would get $500,000 or something like that. He did say Ultimate Warrior always took care of him, but now Kamala's health is in really bad shape. He's had both legs amputated. He's still alive, living in Mississippi, and he paints pictures of himself and sells them. And they're on wood and everything, and he mails them to you. And that's how he's trying to make a living and stay afloat these days with all of his health problems. And my friend Earl bought a bunch of stuff from him back in those days, bought signed photos and action figures and I think 10 signed books, and Earl knew that I respected Kamala and I would care about this, and so Earl gave this to me back when I did his podcast as a gift, and you can see it signed by Kamala. The giant from Uganda, that was his gimmick. And that's his website. If you want to help support him, kamalaspeaks.com. All right, my friends, this is the last thing that I found. This was buried up in my closet. I do remember the story behind it and why I have it, and kind of interesting. I'll tell you about this. What this is this is called, if I'm not mistaken, it was called the Golden Goose. Now, before I was vlogging, to make ends meet, I was hired to be a production assistant, basically for a company that staffed audiences, people that were getting paid to sit in for infomercials, TV shows, things like that. And they were doing a show that we were working on that I had to go and check everyone in for, that was basically, you know, it was like you go and show some invention you have and try and get funding for it. I think you guys have seen plenty of shows like that, so you know what I'm talking about. Well, this was one of those inventions. This was the Golden Goose. Now what this is you unscrew this thing, as I'll do right now. Okay, so what you do with this guy is you take a regular old egg, you put it inside this little device, you screw it all up, and you do what this little device does, and you get a golden egg. You see, if I remember right, the pitch was that they believed people would eat more hard-boiled eggs if they weren't white on the outside and had the yolk on the inside and that little ball, that if it was a golden egg, that people would eat them more likely. So you put the egg inside, I'll show you what you do, and then you hard boil it, which I will do for you, and we'll take a look at what they look like when they're finished. We'll do both of these eggs. Okay, so you put your egg in there, you see that yellow ring on the left, this guy right here that's going around, that's your lock. So you put those two together, screw it up, make sure that it doesn't open up at all. That could be a big problem. You can see they have some grooves up there at the top, so you can tell if you have it locked in or not. It's locked in. Okay, so what we're gonna do is you hold both sides, and then you basically, I gotta remember how you do this, but you start rolling it around like this, and then you just kind of, you see as you string it up, then you pull it and it starts spinning itself. This was their thing, was to have these things so that, there we go, kind of like a yo-yo. Once you get it going, it doesn't stop. There, I kind of had it going there for a second. So the theory is that by the time we get done cooking this thing, the yolk should have scrambled itself like crazy in there, and then we'll give it a try. See if we have a golden egg. Woo! All right, the cooking is taking place right now. Okay, so I left a little bit of the shell on so it would give a little bit of contrast to the color. Now I'm kind of glad this happened this way, because I seem to remember this happening when they were trying to do it on the show, was that if you didn't do it just right, you didn't break the yolk and it still came out white like the one you see on the right, but the one on the left is the golden egg, you can see. So it did do what it was touted to do. All right, my friends, we're gonna call it a night. Thank you all for watching. I hope you liked the crazy odd treasures that I found. I actually found one other thing and then lost it again. It was a monkey judo video, VHS. Breck used to have parties with his friends, like a white elephant Christmas exchange, and I had put this aside for that. The year that I was gonna do it, it got canceled, and I just put it up in a closet and forgot, and then found it and lost it again. Monkey judo was the form of judo by crouching down kind of like in a ball on the ground and doing everything from like a monkey position. So yeah, that could have been interesting, but we'll save that for another vlog. Thank you Roger Pearsall, Chris Hatcher, and Rachel Dean for becoming my newest Patreons. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you all next time. And goodbye.